The Maasai land was wrapped in a heavy, gray sky that seemed to press down on everything below. Rain had been falling for days without rest, turning the once firm grasslands into a slippery mess of mud and water. Paths disappeared beneath puddles, and the wind carried the sharp scent of wet earth and distant thunder. It wasn't just a rainy day, it was the kind of season that changed the rhythm of life, where even the strongest animals slowed down and the land itself seemed to sigh under the weight of weather. Nature, in all its power, had taken over. He used to be a leader, once a powerful lion whose roar could silence a whole valley. But time had taken its toll. The old lion now walked alone, no longer part of any pride. His frame had thinned, his ribs stuck out under a coat of matted fur. Each step came with a slight limp, a reminder of an old wound that never quite healed. The spark in his eyes had faded, replaced by a tired, distant look. He didn't chase anymore, he couldn't. Instead, he wandered the open plains, searching for scraps left behind by quicker predators. Hyenas, leopards, even bones were better than nothing. Hunger gnawed at him daily, and the rains only made things harder, wet, cold, and weak. He pushed forward not out of strength, but out of instinct, a quiet will to keep going. There was no drama in his suffering, just a slow, heavy weariness that settled deep into his bones. And yet, somehow, he walked on, alone, battered by the wild, but still moving, still alive. In the middle of the flooded field, the old lion stepped into what looked like solid ground, but it wasn't. It was a deep patch of mud, slick and heavy from days of non-stop rain. At first, he only sank to his knees, but with every move, the earth seemed to pull him in tighter. The more he fought, the worse it got. His powerful limbs, once so full of strength, thrashed and strained but made no progress. The mud swallowed him inch by inch, patient and unrelenting. 30 long minutes passed as he wrestled against the ground, his breathing growing shallow, his eyes heavy with exhaustion. Finally, too tired to continue, he let his body go still, his eyes slowly closed, not in peace, but in surrender. Rain tapped softly against his mane as he lay half submerged, drifting into a tired sleep, not out of comfort, but because he had nothing left to give. Kamau had seen plenty in his years working the reserve injured animals, flash floods, even the odd poacher's trap, but something about that still shape in the mud caught his eye. The rain was steady as he drove his old patrol truck through the open plains. From a distance, it looked like another loss to the storm, but instinct told him to stop. He stepped out, raincoat flapping in the wind, and walked toward the figure, up close. What he saw hit him hard. It was an old lion, barely breathing. Its chest rose and fell so lightly. Kamau had to kneel just to be sure it was still alive. With no backup nearby and a failing satellite signal, he knew waiting for help wasn't an option. Kamau wasn't just a ranger that day, he was the lion's only chance. The decision came without hesitation. He had to try. Not because it was his job, but because leaving it there just didn't feel right. Kamau didn't have a rescue crew or fancy equipment, just a coil of rope, an old truck, and a whole lot of grit. He waded back into the mud, his boots sinking deep with every step, rain soaking through to his skin. The lion didn't move much, just flicked an ear when Kamau got close, carefully. He looped the rope around its midsection, staying clear of the paws and teeth just in case. It wasn't easy, nothing about it was. The rope slipped, the mud clung like glue, and every pull felt like dragging a boulder uphill. But Kamau kept going, muscle by muscle, inch by inch. He didn't talk much, just gave the occasional whisper, "You've got this, old boy," after what felt like forever. The lion finally broke free of the mud's grip. Kamau collapsed to his knees, out of breath, but deeply relieved. In that moment, there wasn't triumph, just quiet respect between a man and the wild he chose to fight for. When the lion finally lay on solid ground, soaked and shaking, it lifted its head and looked at Kamau, not with fear, not with threat, just a long, quiet gaze like it understood something had just happened. Kamau stood a few feet away, hands still muddy, breathing heavy. He didn't move closer, didn't speak, but in that moment, something unspoken passed between them, a kind of recognition. One soul worn down by nature meeting another who chose not to look away. Kamau wasn't trying to be a hero. He just couldn't ignore suffering, even when it came with claws and teeth. And the lion, somehow, seemed to know that. Kamau sat in his truck, watching the lion breathe, barely moving. Then he remembered there was some extra meat in the cooler from an earlier stop. It wasn't much, but it might be enough. He stepped out quietly, tossed the meat near the lion, and waited. At first, nothing. Then, the lion's nose twitched, slowly. It dragged itself forward, mouth closing gently around the food. Each bite brought back a little more life. After finishing, it lifted its head again and looked straight at Kamau. This time, the look was different, steadier, aware. Kamau didn't wave or speak, he just nodded, quietly thankful that hope had taken one more breath. The rain hadn't let up, but the lion was stronger now, just enough. With slow, deliberate effort, it pushed itself to its feet. Kamau stayed back, watching. The lion turned, casting one last long look in his direction. It wasn't just a glance, it lingered, as if memorizing the face of the man who didn't walk away. Then, step by step, the old lion moved into the open field, rain trailing down its thin back. Each step was shaky, but it moved forward, not fast, not graceful, but alive. Kamau stood in silence, heart full, knowing he might never see it again. Still, in that heavy rain, there was something that felt like peace. Hope didn't roar that day, it simply walked away, slowly, into the mist. Kamau climbed back into his truck, rain still drumming softly on the windshield. His hands were muddy, his clothes soaked, but his heart felt lighter than it had in days. He took one last look in the rearview mirror. The lion, barely more than a shadow now, was slowly fading into the rain-soaked landscape. No grand farewell, just a quiet parting, like two lives brushing briefly before continuing on their own paths. Kamau started the engine, the hum steady beneath the storm. There was still work to be done, still miles to cover, but as the truck rolled forward, he carried something more than duty. He carried the quiet satisfaction of having made a small difference in a wild, wide world. This story wasn't about glory or heroics. It was about something quieter, kindness shown when no one was watching, and the fragile thread that sometimes connects people and wild things. In the middle of a storm, a man chose compassion over comfort, and an old lion kept walking because of it. Nature can be harsh, but moments like this remind us that even the smallest acts of care can echo far beyond the rain.